Our question is the reverse string question. Specifically, the question asks us to reverse a string that is an array of characters. So this is an easy level question, but this question asks us to reverse a string. Simply put, when we think of a string as a data structure, we can think about it almost as it can be broken up into small parts. A string is essentially just like a sequence of characters or an array of characters, if you want to think about it in programming terms. The great thing about this problem is that we don't have to convert a normal string into a list or an array of characters. That would involve an extra step. The input is already an array of characters, or a list of characters in Python. So the specific patterns I would like to point out for this problem are two pointers and swapping. So I'll write that down in a different color. So two pointers and swapping. So swapping is something that could happen with different patterns, if you will, in different languages. So in Python and JavaScript, there are actually some quick hand ways for you to do that. You can actually do it in one-liner in Python and JavaScript, but typically for languages like Java and C++, there's going to be a three-step process. Now, one of the steps is you being able to create a temp variable. Let's just say that it's an int, for example. You processing the array or the string. Let's just say that you have like a variable called left, and then you're going to have to swap it. So first you take the first value that's going to get changed, and then the second value is going to be applied to this first value at left or start. So let me just call that as start. And then you're going to have an end index swapping there. And then the last step, you are going to change the end one by applying that temp variable. So why is this important? If we actually look at our inputs, hello and Hannah, and we think about our indexes, end equals 0, so the first index, and end equals the last character in the string or array. So for example, in Python, that would be len s. So let's just say that's the list of characters -1. So let's apply two different colors. So for this first one, it's going to be the start. And for the next one, we'll make that purple or purplish pink. We'll make that end. So essentially what we're doing with these two pointers is that we're pointing to different parts of the array and then swapping them. So you can imagine that every step we're swapping this. So if we were to process this in a while loop, we would say that this step right here is going through, and then at the end of this being swapped or processed, then we just increment. We just increment the start index by 1, and then we decrement the end index by 1. So, okay, this 0 will be right here, and this h will be right here. Then this arrow right here goes right here because end is decremented by 1, and this yellow one is moved to the right by 1. And then the same process happens. So then we get L swapped with E. So L goes right here. Oops. L goes right here, and E goes right here. And usually we'll have that end on an odd number. So how this actually looks like in code is while start is less than end. This swapping portion right here, and then obviously this ending portion right here. And by the end of it, all your code is going, well, all of the characters in your array is going to be swapped, and essentially the string is going to be swapped. So the other thing to note is that for the time space complexity, we are going to go every character at least once. The time will be O(n) time, but since we're not creating any additional data structures, it'll be O(1) space. So this is actually pretty efficient, and now we'll be able to solve it in Java, Python, and JavaScript. All right, guys, this is going to be the Java solution. So as we discussed in our conceptual overview, essentially what we're going to be doing is creating 2 pointers, a start and end. With a while loop, we're going to be doing a 3-step process in order to swap the elements, and then finally incrementing the first index that goes from left to right, and then decrementing the end index or the right index going from right to left. So let's get started. So first we're going to instantiate a start index at 0, and then we're going to instantiate an end one. So we can do that s.length -1. We don't use the length parentheses open and close, which is a string method, but if we were to have a question that imported an actual string, we would be using .length parentheses open close. So we do our simple start is less than end. Another important thing to notice here is that with these types of swapping questions, and you'll notice this in the palindrome question as well, you're not going to want to do equals just because it'll be an unnecessary process or step. If you're to swap start and end, if they were equal to each other, it would essentially do nothing. So we're preventing that step. So that's why we don't need a less than equals for this while statement. So yeah, let's just create a temp variable where s at the start. So the reason we do this is because we're going to change start first, and we want to keep that value to change end eventually. So s start is going to now have the end value. Then this end value is going to get that temp variable. So you'll notice this for C++ and Java, but this is just the way to do it. And then at the end of this transaction process of swapping these elements in the array, we're going to increment the start index, so it moves from left to right, and then decrement the end index until they both cross paths, and then this while statement breaks. And then you'll have reversed every character within this this array. So let's run this and see if we succeeded. Oh, let's make sure I got this right in temp. Oh, it's a char. Okay, perfect. So I just misdid the type, so we'll just change that really quickly, and that should fix everything. Okay, let's submit this. All right, guys, that was a Java solution. It runs in ON time and O1 space. Thanks, guys. All right, guys, now we've done the Java one. We're going to go to the Python one. So it's going to be the same structure that we talked about in the conceptual overview, but for this Python, you can do a lot of like one-liners or Python idioms in order to swap elements. So you can actually swap Python elements in an easy one-liner just using indexes and swapping the places, which I'll show you right now. And then one other thing is with Python, just knowing the actual built-in functions. So for the length of an array or a string, it's just simply the len or len function. So first we create our start index, which equals 0. And actually, you can see a little bit of Java showed out. So there are no semicolons, there's no typing in Python because it is dynamic. So now we'll just do the length of the list -1, and then while start is less than end. Here again, we can just do the simple one-liner. So s start s end equals s end s start, and then start plus plus. Oh, wait. Again, a little bit of the Java here, and then end -1. So again, this one-liner is how you swap elements in an array in Python. It's really clever. So you're basically just changing the position from start end to end start, and that swaps these elements. And yeah, we'll run this, and the code should work. All right, guys, we are going to be reversing a string in JavaScript. So there's multiple ways to do the swapping action. So the other way is like kind of similar to Java, where we do like a 3-step process where we create a temporary variable, apply the second variable value to the first indexed place in the array, and then the ending index placement in the array is assigned that temp value. But also in newer versions of JavaScript, there's a way to do a one-liner. So we'll try the one-liner, and if not, we'll go for the 3-step element array swapping process. So again, with this, we are just going to create a start variable that starts at index 0, which is the first element's index, and then end is going to be the length of this process. So s minus 1 while start is less than end. And then we're going to create a temp variable. So for this, var temp equals s start s. Oh, and actually, yeah, that would be the 3-step process, but I'll do that and then convert it to the one-liner. But yeah, let's just do that. So s start equals s end, and then s end equals that temp variable. And then we increment it by 1 for the start or left index, and then we decrement by 1 for the end index, and then they eventually cross paths or meet in the middle, and that breaks out this while loop. Start less than end. So let's see if this processes. Okay, so I'm mistaken the length function, so let's see if it's just length too. All right, back guys. So I was a little confused on the length thing, but yeah, simply in JavaScript, you just do .length, and that returns for whatever object or data structure you're using. So let's see if that works. Okay, so we're going to now convert this 3-step process into a 1-step process. So let's start with that right now. So you can do a one-liner similar to Java with swapping elements by putting those elements that are being swapped within its own list. So start s end, and then just swap the positions and right here. So let's see if this works. And okay, yep. So yeah, this is just kind of a faster one-liner to do it with JavaScript. Anyways, thanks guys for joining, and see you guys in the next video. Cheers.